Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss the government accounting process. This is the continuation of our video lectures regarding government accounting. So as mentioned in our previous lecture, government accounting process comprises the activities of analyzing, recording, classifying, summarizing, and communicating transactions involving the receipt and disposition of government funds and property, and interpreting the results thereof. So this process is similar to that of a business entity, except that it incorporates budgetary controls such as recording in the budget registries and preparing periodic budget accountability reports. So as you can see, these are the book of accounts and registries of government entities. So we have journals, ledgers, and the budget registries. So for the book of accounts, journals, and ledgers, we have the general journal. General journal is used to record transactions not recorded in the special journals. And the special journals are as follows. So we have cash receipts journal, cash disbursements journal, and check disbursements journal. General ledgers or general ledger summarizes all transactions recorded in the journals. And then for subsidiary ledgers, they show the details or the breakdown of each control account in the general ledger. Technically, only the journals and ledgers are considered accounting records. So these are similar to the accounting records of a business entity. The registries, however, are budget records. These are used to monitor the budget. So you may think of the registries like logbooks or something rather than accounting books with debit and credit columns. So the accounting unit of the agency maintains the journals and ledgers, while the budget division of the agency maintains the registries. So now, what are these budget registries? So first, we have the registries of revenue and other receipts, or RROR. So these are used to monitor the budgeted amounts, actual collections, and remittances of revenue and other receipts. Next, we have the Registry of Appropriations and Allotments, or RAPAL. This is used to monitor appropriations and allotments, okay, to ensure that allotments will not exceed the appropriations. Then we have registries of allotments, obligations, and disbursements, or RAOD. These are used to monitor the allotments received, obligations incurred against the corresponding allotment, and the actual disbursements made. This is to ensure that obligations incurred will not exceed allotments, while actual disbursements will not exceed the obligations incurred. Separate RAODs are maintained for each object of expenditure, which we're going to discuss later on. Then lastly, we have registries of budget, utilization, and disbursements, or RBUD. These are used to record the approved special budget and the corresponding utilizations and disbursements charged to retained income. So separate RBUDs are also maintained for each object of expenditure. Now, the classifications of expenditures by object are as follows. So we have first, personal services or PS. These pertain to all types of employee benefits. Example, salaries, bonuses, allowances, cash gifts, etc. Okay, then we have financial expenses or FE. These pertain to finance cost, example, interest, bank charges, etc. The financial expenses also include losses on foreign exchange transactions. Third, we have the maintenance and other operating expenses, or MOOE. These pertain to various operating expenses other than employee benefits and financial expenses. Example, travel, utilities, and supplies expenses. Lastly, we have capital outlays. or CO. These pertain to capitalizable expenditures. Expenditures such as on the construction of public infrastructures or acquisition cost of equipment. Now, for our RAOD and RBUD, we have to maintain separate registry for each object of expenditure. Right. Now, this is your government accounting cycle. So the government accounting cycle starts with the appropriation. It is a legislation, or it's rather an authorization received from a legislative body. Then followed by the allotment. Authorization coming from the DBM, which enables the government agency to incur obligations. That's why it is also known as the obligational authority. Then we have the actual incurrence of obligation, followed by the disbursement authority. So in this stage, the government agency is now authorized to disburse funds for payments of its obligations. And then the actual disbursements, followed by number 6, although it goes simultaneously with the incurrence of obligation. So billings, collections, and remittances. Billings, collections, and remittances, these are this process or this stage is for the receipt of revenue and other receipts by the government agency. And then we have the unadjusted trial balance. So this lists down all the account balances by the government agency or of the government agency before any adjusting entries. And then we have the adjusting entries, posting, the closing entries, and finally, the preparation of financial statements. So to understand this cycle, let's have an illustration. First, let's study the trial balance of entity A, the government agency, at the beginning of the period. So we have here the assets, liabilities, and the equity represented by the accumulated surplus or deficit. So as mentioned, the government accounting cycle begins with the appropriation. So the appropriation, it is the authorization from the legislative body, or in this case, the Congress. So in our example, entity A receives its government appropriation amounting to 1.2 million pesos. So what would be the corresponding entry on this transaction? So for the appropriation, there will be no accounting entry in the accounting books. So how will this be recorded? It will only be posted in the Registry of Appropriations and Allotments, or RAPAL. Next, we have the allotment. This is the authorization to incur obligations from the Department of Budget and Management. So in our example, entity A receives its allotment. It should be allotment. Allotment amounting to 900,000 from the DBM. Similar to appropriation, we do not have any accounting entry in the accounting books. Rather, it will only be recorded or posted in the budget registries. Okay, and then the budget registries relevant are RAPAL, or the Registry of Appropriations and Allotments, and the Registry of Allotments, Obligations, and Disbursements. Now, since the government agency received its allotment, it will now be, or it is now authorized to incur obligations up to a maximum amount of 900,000 for a given period. Then we have the actual incurrence of obligations. So entity A incurs the following obligations. So these are grouped into the different objects of expenditure. So we have personal services, financial expenses, maintenance and other operating expenses, and for the capital outlays. Okay, after incurrence of obligation, or rather for simplification, taxes in this illustration do not necessarily reflect the provisions of relevant tax laws. So the withholding taxes of 20,000 will not reflect the tax law related to the compensation of employees.